So I cannot tell you how many people I've seen over the years become house rich but cash poor. So today I'm going to show you the exact strategy that I've used to help hundreds of my clients crush their mortgages, get rid of them, while actually building more wealth than they ever thought possible. So here's what we're going to be covering, right? First up, I'm going to reveal why your mortgage interest rate is probably lying to you about what you should actually be doing with your money. Then I'm going to dive into what I call the split strategy. And essentially that will let you have your cake and eat it too. I'm going to show you a tax loophole that most homeowners that I meet completely ignore. And finally, we'll build your flexibility fund. Basically, that's just the secret weapon that gives you all of the options that you'll ever need. And look, trust me, by the end of this video, you will never have to stress between choosing between paying off your mortgage and saving money and building investments and building wealth ever again. Okay, so first, let me show you that your mortgage might not be this big financial emergency, this big burden, as much as you might think it is. This is gonna sound a little bit crazy at first, but just stay with me, all right? So most people I speak to, right, they look at their mortgage and they think, I hate debt. I just need to get rid of this mortgage as fast as humanly possible. And you know what, I get it, right? I understand debt feels scary, but here's the thing, not all debt is created equal. Now, your mortgage interest rate is the absolute key to this whole entire puzzle, okay? So let's say that you have a 3% mortgage rate. With every extra pound that you put towards your mortgage and pay off, essentially, you are saving 3% per year, right? Simple maths. So if you overpay by £1,000, let's say, you save 30 quid annually in interest, right? But here's where it gets interesting, okay? That same £1,000, that could go into, let's say, a simple investment like a global index fund or something like that. Historically, these have returned around 7 to 10%, but call it 7%, right? For the time being, over the longer term. So instead of saving 30 quid, you could actually be making 70. Look, think about it like this, right? Paying off your mortgage is basically a 3% guaranteed investment, right? You are guaranteed to save that money because you're kind of paying it off. But if you can get 7% elsewhere, does that really make a lot of sense? And look, here's the kicker, I think. Here's the thing that people massively misunderstand. When your money's in an investment portfolio, for instance, you can, in theory, still get access to it if you need it. Now, okay, might not be optimal, but you still can. When it's in a mortgage, it's locked in the walls. It's like painting £50 notes into the walls, right? You can't exactly just break off a bit of the kitchen when you need cash for an emergency. Now, I know what you're thinking, okay? I am not saying that mortgages are evil and that you should never pay them off. What I'm saying is that you need to compare your options, right? Understand the various utilizations of your money when paying off debt versus what you could get elsewhere. It's not about being clever or taking massive risks with your money, right? It's just kind of basic fundamental mathematics, right? Every pound you own has different jobs that it could do for you. Your job is figuring out which job is best for that pound coin, if that makes sense. And I think once you start seeing all of this way, right, the whole mortgage versus investing dilemma starts to make a lot more sense, and you can kind of put together your own little strategy. Right, so let me tell you about this brilliant approach that one of my clients kind of, I guess, accidentally discovered. And honestly, I've just stolen it and it's become my absolute go-to recommendation. So this client was a teacher in her early 40s, right? And she came to me feeling completely torn by this exact dilemma, right? She had £800 every month that she wanted to do something with. So after all her essentials, everything else was paid for, she had £800 that she wanted to either overpay her mortgage or invest or do something with. And it was driving her just absolutely mental, trying to decide whether to smash her mortgage, pay down her mortgage, or to try and start investing properly. And despite what every other finance guru seemed to be screaming about, you've got to pick one side or the other, well, what we did is we implemented this split strategy, right? Basically, instead of this kind of arbitrary binary strategy of all or one, all or nothing, essentially, we created this percentage split based on her specific situation. So we carved up that £800 depending on what she wanted to achieve. And at first, she was super skeptical about the whole thing. She kept saying, surely there is a right or wrong answer to this whole topic, right? But reluctantly, she put it in place. And after 6 months, something, I don't know, kind of cool happens, right? She rang me up and I could just hear this kind of massive relief in her voice. And it really, really stuck with me because she said, for the first time in years, right, I feel like I'm kind of winning on all fronts instead of constantly worrying that I'm making the right or wrong decision. So here is exactly how this works in practice. Okay, so what I want you to do is take whatever extra money you've got each month. So for that client, it was 800, doesn't matter. Could be 200, could be 2,000, really doesn't matter. And what I want you to do is split it between paying off your mortgage and longer term cash and investment goals based on your personal kind of circumstance and comfort level and goals. We'll go on to that in a minute. So let's say in this example, you've got an extra £600 per month, right? You might want to do a 60-40 split, something like that. So in this case, what's that? So that is £360 goes to the mortgage overpayments and £240 goes into investments or long-term cash savings or something like that. Or maybe you want to be a little bit more aggressive with the investment portfolio and sort of general wealth building. So flip it, 240 into the mortgage, 360 into the investments. There's no right or wrong answer. You've just got to start fleshing out what you feel is right for you, basically. But the beauty of this is that you're kind of making progress on both fronts simultaneously, right? You're chipping away at that mortgage, which feels brilliant psychologically, but you're also building this kind of pot of money that's working for you and growing at exactly the same time. And here's the clever bit that I need you to really, really, really get your head around, right? You just adjust the split accordingly, right? So if interest rates shoot up, then maybe you want to point a little bit of a higher percentage towards paying off your mortgage because it's costing you a little bit more, right? If the markets are doing really well and you can get way more money in that environment, then maybe tilt towards that side. It's not a science. You've got to just adapt to whatever is happening in the markets, in the economy, and in your personal life. Look, this principle is so simple, but so powerful, right? I've seen this make such an impact on people's lives because success, right? Financial success is 80% behavior, and 20% knowledge. When you remove this paralyzing choice between paying off your mortgage or investing or putting it into your pension, you actually just start making consistent progress instead of being stuck in this constant worry. Okay, this next point is again something hugely overlooked and I don't think plays an important enough part in this conversation with investing versus paying off your mortgage. It is leveraging tax efficient accounts first. This, I think, costs homeowners thousands and thousands of pounds a year without them even knowing about it. So look, we've already spoken about this, right? But extra mortgage payments, overpaying on your mortgage slightly, it seems straightforward, right? Pay more now, save interest later, own your own home sooner. It makes perfect sense, right? But beneath all of that is again this mathematical reality that kind of honestly changes everything, right? The government is literally offering you free money through things like tax relief on pensions and tax-free growth on ISAs. And most people that I meet are just walking straight past it. So let me just very quickly show you how powerful this invisible mathematics actually is. So we looked at what would happen if you, say, for example, put that same £1,000 into like an investment versus, say, paying off your mortgage, right? And we know that that picture works the way that it does. But that isn't even taking into account these amazing tax reliefs that you get. So if you stick that same £1,000 into, let's say, for example, your workplace pension instead, here's what actually happens. First, you get 20% tax relief immediately, right? So your £1,000 contribution only costs you 800 quid out of your pocket. And then your employer probably matches some of that as well. So let's say that's an extra 200. So now you've got £1,200 working for you that only costs you 800 quid. There is no mortgage overpayment mathematics that actually come close to that. And also, might I just say, that is before, again, we even factor in any investment growth. We are talking here about a guaranteed 50% return from just tax relief and employer matching alone. Okay, again, show me a mortgage overpayment. Show me a mortgage that charges 50% interest. You can't, because it doesn't exist. So after pensions, of course, there's your ISA allowance as well, right? So that's £20,000 a year of potential tax-free growth. So if you've got any extra cash lying around and you're thinking to yourself, right, mortgage versus investments versus pension, whatever it is, if you're not maxing out these allowances first, you're basically paying tax you don't need to pay. To cut through all the noise, let me just give you a sequence of payments that kind of has broadly worked for people that I've worked with over the years, okay? First, contribute enough to your workplace pension to get that full employer match. Just ring up your HR. They'll be able to give you the answer as how much you'll be able to put to your pension, either that or payroll or something, or in your sort of contract, it will be there. It's literally turning down free money if you don't do this, okay? So that's the first thing you need to do. So then obviously use your ISA allowance, that's £20,000 a year, and put any investments into that, that's tax-free growth. And only after you've maxed out these tax-advantaged options, really that's the point where you should start thinking about extra mortgage payments and having a think about how that percentage split works for you. Look, being brutally honest, this maths works whether you acknowledge it or not. The difference between building real wealth and just getting by, it isn't about earning more, okay? It's not about sort of just chucking more in. It's about seeing and using these government incentives that they're just sitting right there in front of you, waiting for you to use. Okay, and finally, and probably my most valuable thing that I might say to you in this video is that I want you to start creating your financial flexibility fund. So, as I've already mentioned, one of the biggest problems that I see with people making this decision, essentially, is that a lot of people will pay off their debt first. They'll pay off their mortgage first. But again, what you get into is that situation where you're house rich and cash poor. Yeah, sure, you own more of your house, but you've got no liquidity. You've got no liquid money for anything else. So instead of using that split strategy, for example, to tackle both and pay it down at exactly the same time, let me give you a different approach that honestly has worked brilliantly for a couple of the clients that I've put this into place with. So instead of overpaying on your mortgage, you build what I would call a financial flexibility fund. So here's how it works, right? So you take that extra money that you were going to throw at the mortgage and you invest it into a completely separate account instead. I don't know, something simple like a stocks and shares ISA with a global index fund, right? Your goal is to grow this fund until it matches your remaining mortgage balance. So let's say you've got a mortgage of, I don't know, £150,000, right? Instead of overpaying by, I don't know, £500 per month, you actually invest that £500 a month into your flexibility fund. Over time, this fund will grow through contributions and, of course, investment returns. And this is where the magic happens, right? So when your fund reaches that magical £150,000 mark, or whatever the amount you owe on your mortgage is, you've then got the greatest privilege of all. You've got options. So you could, if you wanted to, pay off the entire mortgage. Or if your investments are doing really well and you're happy to keep them invested, just enjoy the fact that you could then take that money and basically pay off your mortgage at every single time. Obviously, you might get some like market fluctuations. This might move up and down, but in theory, you've got that flexibility. Again, I cannot stress to you the importance of liquidity, okay? If life throws you curveballs, which it does with everyone. I've seen it thousands of times. Job loss, career opportunity, family emergency. You've got access to that money. Try getting cash out of your mortgage quickly. Good luck with that. One of my clients literally just put this absolutely perfectly. She summed it up so well. She said, it's like having a get out of jail free card for my mortgage, but I only have to use it if I want to. I love this approach because it gives you all of the benefits of that mortgage freedom without trapping your money in kind of bricks and mortar, right? You're building wealth that works for you. You're staying flexible for opportunities and still working towards that goal of owning your home outright. And in summary, look, the reason why this is so powerful is because your money should give you options, not lock you into one predefined path. Now, everything that I've just shared with you only works if you start to develop the right habits, the right mindset, right? That is why you should probably watch this video here next, because I have spent every single day of my life for the last nearly 15 years talking and working with millionaires. And I've noticed some very clear, very consistent habits that virtually all of them share. So click here.